Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to France. Je parlez-vous français? Je cherche un ami in la bibliothèque. I'm looking for a friend in the library. And do I not speak French? I think is what I just said. I'm not really sure. Either way, we're not going to be speaking French tonight, but we are going to be drinking French tonight. I see some people are already tuned in. That's awesome. If you are tuned in, go ahead and join the chat room. Please just comment who you are and where you are hailing from is my new favorite phrase. Are you hailing from Hampton Roads? I know I've got people tuned in from Colorado and Florida and New York and Pennsylvania as well tonight. So just tell us where you're coming from. And if you've got these wines that we are going to be tasting, awesome. If not, tell us what you've got open tonight. So anyone can tune in to any of these virtual classes, regardless of whether or not you have these wines. But if you do have them, awesome. And if you don't, just let me know what is in your glass. I'm about to pour the first wine, Fabrice Gasnier. I always say things in a Spanish accent, even though it's French. That's not how you say Fabrice Gasnier. I'm not sure. I have no idea. And if he's watching this, now I'm really embarrassed. But it is the Chenin Blanc. So Chignon's the region. Chenin Blanc is the grape. Go ahead and pour yourself that first wine. And we are going to get started shortly. So Jen Long, hi, Jen and Jared. Dante and Robin are also joining y'all tonight. I saw the smiley face and it's going the other way around. I thought it was a frown face for a second. I was like, well, that's an odd thing to say. But okay, gotcha. I see that it's just going the other direction. So Christine Carlson from Carlson from Norfolk. Awesome. Lori and Brad from North Suffolk. Fabulous. My parents, Stephen, Trina Hill's Saw Mom, if y'all haven't met her yet, you will shortly. Tiffany, this is your first class, Tiffany, super excited. Christine has a private reach out to promoting, by the way, these private Zoom events. I just got a professional Zoom account because that's what you do when you're on quarantine. So by the way, when we're setting up, just start sipping the first wine, just like cleanse your palate, enjoy it, have fun. This is not like blind tasting where we're going to be super rigid about the actual analytics of tasting. So Bill and Wendy from Suffolk, great to see y'all. Hopefully no broken glasses this time. Although I always say that an event is not over until I have broken at least one glass. So you know, that's the mark of a good party, I think. So Jimmy and Dorothy, awesome. They're regulars of mine for my real talking to a computer and seeing text on a screen. And sometimes it feels a little odd to me. It's been a little bit difficult to get used to for sure. Jenny and Brandon, awesome, coming in from Norfolk. Katie from Virginia Beach, fabulous. Anna from Norfolk and Beth, awesome, celebrating an anniversary, or just recently, actually, sorry, not this time, but just recently. Amanda and Matt coming, oh man, I miss tasting with you all. I miss like seeing everybody, seeing all these names kind of is a little heartbreaking. We'll get used to it really soon though. Chris, awesome, with Lisa, Kelsey, and Tom from Virginia Beach. Fabulous to see you all. I got some Williamsburg people coming in. Thanks, Rob and Gail, for tuning in. And Irene, first class here as well. Super exciting. So let me just break some of this stuff down for you, how tonight is going to work, because some people who are tuning in have never been to an event before. This is definitely one of my smaller classes that I've done. It's obviously a little bit pricier than my other virtual classes. French wine is unfortunately just a little bit more expensive, but it can be truly heartbreakingly beautiful. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna taste 2 whites and 2 reds, regardless of whether or not you're tasting along with us. That is what we'll be going through. I'm going to be encouraging you all to make notes on your note page in terms of what you learn about the region, what you learn about the producer, soil type, or just your tasting notes of the wine itself. So anything, jot it down. The act of writing something down helps you remember it so much, more than anything else, more than literally anything else, science shows, all the studies show that the act of just physically writing something down, not typing it, physically writing it down really, really helps. So we are going to be going over the French map and some different regions, the basic systems of classification for French wine, so you can kind of understand wine labels when you're shopping for French wine, because man, they are confusing. I say that, and like I am a sommelier, and I know French wines pretty well, but French wine labels are still pretty darn confusing. We will be going over analytical tasting just briefly, but this is not a blind tasting class, so we're not going over this really intensely. The point is to enjoy the wines, not necessarily like super analyze the wines. If you want to use this is the wine aroma chart, and it's basically like a vocabulary word bank. So while you are smelling your wine, if you're trying to name what you're smelling, this can be helpful for you. Like, I smell something, but I just can't put my finger on it. Going over some of these categories and specifics can help you do that. And that is how you become a better taster. So last blind tasting class, last week we did a blind tasting class, and I talked about the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. I'm going to type that in here, RAS. I'm not going to try and type in Reticular Activating System in the middle of this because it will come out all wonky. But Reticular Activating System is basically when your brain chooses to clue itself in on some information and tune out the rest. So when you're reading a book, your brain automatically picks up the vocabulary that you already know, and it kind of skips over the vocabulary that you don't know or that you're not familiar with. And it just allows you to understand the meaning of the whole sentence without cluing you in that you don't know one word necessarily. Our brains just do this automatically. We're going down the road and we're driving, and our brain only clues us in on the information that we need to be able to drive safely. So we don't see and hear and sense everything. Tasting wine is all about tuning our brain to pick up on smells. Even if we're not trained, our brain isn't trained to really focus on the sense of smell, or the sense of acid, or the sense of tannin, or the weight of the wine on our palate. Generally, our brain just picks up on how much we like or don't like the wine, not all the individual characteristics of the wine. So 90% of what we do in wine tasting as professionals, or people who just are wine nerds, and if you're on this video, by the way, you are a wine nerd, and welcome to the tribe, because it's a wonderful thing to be a wine nerd. But being a wine nerd is about picking up on those little things. So that's what we're going to be doing. So then once you learn that new thing, once you learn that new smell, once you learn that new taste, once you learn that new texture, you find that every time you try a wine that has similar things. So just like you learn that new vocabulary word, like reticular activation system, you start hearing more and more people talk about RAS, or reticular activation system. And you start thinking, like, how have I never heard this before? Because it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. I hear it all the time. And that's just your brain cluing in that this thing is important. So that's what we're going to be doing when we taste the wines. But basically, what I want to convey to everybody is that, yes, we are going to be a little bit wine nerdy, but the point is to increase your enjoyment of wine. So, that's why we're on this video. That's why I've met you all. But to me, because I am a nerd, I think I can enjoy something more if I understand more about it. So we're going to understand more about French wine history, French wine labeling, French wine classification, French wine regions. And that should help us enjoy French wine a little bit more, because to me, I think French wine has the reputation of being the most snobby, the most pretentious, the most difficult and austere and intimidating. And I am here through viniculture to eradicate all of those preconceptions. They're still there, don't get me wrong, but these French winemakers that we're going to be tasting through tonight are the opposite of that. They're literally farmers who who will invite you into their home and cook you dinner and have dirt underneath their fingernails and just be pouring you wine and just be so grateful and happy that you are tasting their wine. We're not tasting these crazy glamorous producers that cost hundreds of dollars per the bottle. We're tasting wines by individual producers, these boutique wineries that just have like one owner. That owner is not only the owner of the entire like establishment and winery, but they're the farmer. They are the winemaker. They are the marketer. They are literally everything. So none of these producers are large. They're all fabulous. And we're going to be tasting some unique wines, not from your typical regions that everyone knows about in France. And like, we're not tasting Burgundy, we're not tasting Champagne, we're not tasting Bordeaux. We're gonna be tasting wines from regions that I think offer some of the best values in all of France for some of the highest quality wine that I have found without the price tag of like collector status. So all of that being said, hopefully you have poured your first white. If you're tuning in with us, not that one. Sorry, didn't mean to startle everyone there. The first wine is the Chenin Blanc, which is a Chenin Blanc. That is the grape from the region of Chignon, and that region is Loire Valley. If you have not already, make sure both of your white wines are pulled out of the fridge so they come up to a better temperature for tasting. And throw that Beaujolais in the fridge. That needs to be in the fridge for like 15, 20 minutes before we start tasting that. So all of that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Oh, we've got some people tuning in from Texas. Awesome. I picked out some wines from them from a local wine store. If you know of anyone who wants to tune into this, but you know, I can't get the wine to them, let me know. I'm happy to call a local wine store and have some wine set aside for them. So just let me know. I just want everyone to drink amazing wine, and I want to join the virtual tribe right now. So first wine. All right. On this map, if you want to pull up your map here, classification system is up here. Map is down here. So all of France, we kind of basically break France down into a basic square. I know it's not, but you have to oversimplify maps to make them easy to remember. And that is so key when you're studying wine. So the Loire Valley is right here, this peach region that is kind of in the upper 1/3 of France, but on the Atlantic coast, so on the west coast of France. The Loire Valley, all of this peach region, if you compile up literally all of the land mass that could be consistent of the Loire Valley, that covers over 1/3 of France. So literally all of this, these are specific regions, but all of this right here could be considered the Loire Valley because it's all of the land that is within or affected by the Loire Valley and its river tributary system. So all the rivers, the smaller rivers that feed into the Loire Valley, which is a massive river system that feeds into the Atlantic Ocean right here. So 1/3 of France is the Loire Valley. So it is a huge region, but it's not consistent. So it's not like Bordeaux, where Bordeaux has a very, very specific taste profile for their wines and a very specific types of grapes that are grown and rules and regulations for the whole region. Loire Valley is broken down into tiny little regions, first of all sectors, and then tiny little regions that are then expressive of a French word that basically means sense of place. So I always stand up when I do this in class, but we'll sit down. I'll pull up a chair over here. So terroir, sense of place. So right now I'm sitting on a wooden chair. My feet are on tile floor. I've got a wooden table in front of me. I've got light coming in on this side and right above me. There's a vent right here. I can see the laptop. I can see you all. I can't see you, but I can see the laptop to give me access to y'all very well. This is my sense of place right here. Literally, I could go just over here, and all of a sudden, my sense of place has changed. I'm standing up. I'm not sitting down. The window is to my back. The light is over here. I cannot see the camera enough with you. I have the same tile underneath my feet, but my entire perception of the room has changed as a result of a very minute difference in shift of place. So that's how terroir works, and vines operate the same way. So if I'm a vine right here in, let's say, the Muscadet region of France, that's the Loire Valley region closest to the Atlantic Ocean, makes incredible white wines, love them. That sense of place is drastically different than just east of it, the area of Chignon. So Chignon is a little bit further inland, less of that Atlantic coast influence, less of that sea salt in the air, different climate, different soil, different terrain. Even though it's a very, very close and still within the Loire Valley, drastically different sense of place or terroir. So that's all terroir. And so all throughout Loire Valley, we have very, very different regions and senses of terroir. So further inland, you have rushing rivers that are much smaller, and they're a little bit more dramatic, right? They're like tumbling over rocks and like really aggressive and vibrant river systems, versus the further you get to the Atlantic Ocean, the wider the rivers get, the lazier they get, the more like beach vibes they get. And the wines often imitate that personality of the Loire River. So further inland, you get these like really intense, aggressively vibrant, racy wines. And the closer you get to the coast, the more, not lazy, but approachable the wines get, the more that beach vibe, that chill vibe that the wines get, instead of like this intensity and raciness. So imagine like a New Yorker versus like someone from South Carolina. Like that's kind of the difference of personality in some of these wines. So Chignon is an area right in the central part of Loire, and it focuses actually on Cabernet Franc, but the few white wines that they make, and I'm talking like less than 7% of their wines are white, is Chenin Blanc. So Chenin Blanc has to be 100% Chenin Blanc. We'll talk about why that is in a second. So, but first of all, let's just taste this wine. We're going to taste this pretty quickly in terms of analyzing the wine through the basics of tasting right here. So first of all, we want to look at the color of a wine. Yes, Tiffany, you got it. The color is so beautiful, like golden apple juice, Lori says. Awesome. So the site of the wine is one of the most important things that is mostly overlooked when it comes to wine tasting. And by that, I mean just like pour an ounce, toss it back, decide whether or not you like it. We are analyzing wine because remember, you're wine nerds tonight. So if you hold the wine up to the light, you can see just in the video alone, this wine is really golden in color. Sometimes that's very obscured on video, the actual color of the wine, but this is legit what this wine looks like. So if you have a light source behind you, give the wine a good swirl. And what we're looking for, I have condensation on my glass because the wine is cold. I did not bring out my wine when I was supposed to, like I told all of y'all in the email. But if you give the wine a good swirl, what we're looking for is the clarity of the wine, how the light is reflected through the wine. By the way, it's easiest to swirl if you hold the wine at the bottom of the glass right here. So the bottom of the stem, if you hold it up here, you kind of have to move your whole arm, and that gets a little bit more messy. I should know, I spill wine all the time. But if you hold it at the bottom of the stem, it's just easier to swirl with a follicular wrist. And we can see that even though the color is dense and concentrated, the light is reflecting really brilliantly through it. It's not cloudy or hazy outside of just the glass being cloudy because mine is condensation. But the wine is actually like reflecting the wine with clarity. The color, this is definitely like on the gold scale, right? Generally speaking, you only get gold wine if it's heavily aged in oak or seriously got some age on it. So oxygen over many, many years will change the color of white wine and make it darker. Makes red wine lighter, but white wine darker. This wine's only 5 years old, so the color itself isn't really coming from oak, and it's not coming from serious age, partly of both of those, but mostly it's coming from extra skin contact of the grape itself. So the skin only the color itself. So whether it's white or red, the skins give it color. So once you peel off the skin of a red grape, it's the same color inside as a white grape. This wine has some skin contact, we can tell. So white grapes, if you macerate them, stir them, crush them, introduce the juice to the skins for a bit of a longer period of time than is usual for white wine, you get a more golden hue to the wine. So this has slight amounts of oak, it has 5 years aged on it, and it has some skin contact, all making it a darker color. So concentration, definitely that deeper concentration color. You can easily read through it, but that's just because it's a white wine. But it's definitely a pretty concentrated white wine for sure. Those legs are tearing. What you're looking for is the teardrops or the drips of extra wine that form and fall down the inside of the glass. Now, that tells us alcohol percentage. So the slower they are to form and fall, the higher the alcohol content. The faster they form and fall, or sometimes, like I am seeing now, a sheeting effect, and that's where the whole rim just breaks apart like Windex instead of forming legs and falling down. Does anyone else see this in their glass? Curious, do y'all see it in yours? Okay. I've got Sam with me, of course. Everyone can give a shout out to Sam. And so my whole rim is actually breaking apart like Windex, and forming these tiny droplets rather than legs. So let's see here. Question, are all Chenin Blancs from this region alone? Yes, so Chignon specifically is the region. It's a geographic region. So all Chenin Blanc just means white wine from Chignon. Now Chenin Blanc, that is the grape, can be from anywhere in the entire world. But Chenin Blanc, which is Chenin Blanc, I know this is why I never date Frenchmen. They're just so confusing. But yes, Chenin Blanc only comes from this region of Chignon, but Chenin Blanc, which is grown in this region, can be grown anywhere. So, great question, by the way. Yes, okay, great. Some other people are getting a sheeting effect. So that would indicate pretty low alcohol content. Let us investigate and see. Well, it says 13%. Which is not necessarily super low. It might just be the first wine in our glass, but we will get more into the alcohol percentage as we go. So let's go ahead and get our nose in here, because Chenin Blanc can be a non-aromatic wine. It can be really mute and austere sometimes, or it can be so flamboyant and extra in its aromatics, and it just has such a wide range of styles based on the region itself and the winemaker's preference. So get your noses in there. As the wine warms up, it releases more of those aromatics. So if it's a little too cold, if you forgot to bring it out of the refrigerator in time, you can cup your hands around it and warm it up. Mine is definitely a little too cold. And as it warms up, alcohol evaporates just slightly and releases those esters, or those chemical compounds that tells us what we are smelling. Get your nose all the way in there. If you're struggling to find an aroma in wine, shouldn't be difficult with this wine because it's not shy, but if you ever are, you want to trap those esters and concentrate them. So you can like cup your hands on top of the glass, give it a good swirl. All those esters are going to be released through the evaporation in that glass, but they're going to be trapped in the glass. So then you can kind of get an intense concentration of that. You also get a concentration of the alcohol evaporation when you do that, so you can get a little bit of a head buzz. So just be careful not to do that too much too often when tasting, unless you want to, and then do it. So what are y'all smelling? Break open that wine aroma chart if you need help nailing anything down and what you're smelling. First things first, I always decide how intense is the nose. Is it an extrovert that's super loud at a party and just walks in and is like, hello, here I am? Or is it that introvert that you don't even notice in the party until like an hour after they are there, and then they finally start talking? So what scale of introvert versus extrovert is this wine? And then talk to me about what specifically you are talking about. So are you talking about apples? Are you talking about pears? Are you talking about blackberries? Are you talking about leather, spice? Like, what are you talking about with this wine? Imagine this is a person, and you smelling this wine is the conversation you are having with this person. What are you talking about? So, lovely soft nose and floral. Okay, fabulous. Love that. Yes, it is. While I think it's a very expressive nose, it is lovely and feminine and softer for sure. It's not edgy. It's not sharp. It doesn't have neck tattoos. That's my new thing. I did a private Zoom event for this group of people, and the wine was like so aggressive on the front end. Like, it smelled so aggressive. It was so edgy. It was so smoky. It was so spicy. They're like, this is like meeting that guy that has like neck tattoos. And so system for classifying wine that's really extra. This wine is not extra in terms of neck tattoos. It's really lovely and feminine, but it does have a lot going on the nose. So, awesome. So turpentine, interesting. Okay. Apple and soft clover. Okay. So we got some like herbaceous notes and some fruit notes as well. Honeysuckle. Yes, 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 yes. That's classic Chenin Blanc. Honeysuckle notes, apple and pear. Those three things, if you find those three things in a white wine and you are blind tasting, chances are it is a Chenin Blanc. So remember that for next week when we do a blind tasting virtual class, if you want to attend that. I'm not saying I'm going to have a Chenin Blanc, but if I do, it should have honeysuckle, apple, and pear. So floral and melon. Okay. They're not pungent like you feel like you're about to have an allergy attack. Sometimes white wines are so floral, you feel like you're about to have an allergy attack, or at least I do because I'm super allergic to pollen. But there can be like delicate flowers. So honeysuckle, white and yellow flowers, that honeysuckle, those like apple blossom kind of things, all in there. Absolutely. Love the melon call. Definitely not like watermelon or even on the green melon side, but more on the cantaloupe side. All of Chenin Blanc is generally in that yellow, white, and orange circle. So it doesn't have a lot of green notes. It's not green apple, it's yellow apple. It's not green pear, it's brown pear. It's not green melon, it's cantaloupe. So think about wines in terms of these circles that they can kind of fit in. And this Chenin Blanc definitely fits in that like yellow, orange, and white category, that globe. So, all right. So it almost smells sweet and sour at the same time. Interesting. So those intense floral notes and this, like, I get a lot of tropical notes on this too. I get like pineapple, like Dole's pineapple out of like a can kind of thing. And those like white grapes that are all in that like fruit cocktail. I get these like tropical notes out of that. And so it smells, all the fruit smells ripe, and there's all these floral notes. So it leads us to believe that this wine actually, and I haven't tasted it on this video yet, obviously I tasted it before, but it leads us to believe that the wine might be sweet because it's so floral, so juicy fruit, so tropical in nature. But let's see if it actually is sweet. So when you taste the wine, I always recommend tasting the wine just like an initial sip, that first sip, swallow it down right away, and just get that first impression of the wine. That's like shaking someone's hand, or we don't do that anymore, the namaste bow, or that first impression that when we meet someone, that head nod at a bar. And then after that, take a larger sip in your mouth, swish it around, swirl it around like mouthwash, let it coat every part of your mouth, and let's get to know the actual flavor profile of this wine. So first initial sip. Ooh. Wow. I never, unless I'm doing videos, it's so weird, y'all. I tell everyone to do these first initial sips. I never do these first initial sips. My first sip is always this big gulp, swish and swirl, like really aggressive tasting, because generally I'm trying to taste as many wines as possible in a very short amount of time. I spit them all out, and it's just like bam, 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 write my notes and go. whenever I do this first initial sip of a wine I think I know, I'm always surprised at it. And to me, I'm surprised that this wine actually offers as much as it does on just that first initial, just like short sip. It's like I take lemon meringue and whip it up with like melon flavoring and pineapple juice, and I spread it on a graham cracker. It has like this graham cracker crust of a pie kind of feeling to it, and you eat that as icing or something. There's a lot going on. I'm enjoying it. My mom is laughing at me over here. All right, so second sip, larger sip. This is what I normally do. Let's see what it gives us. So take that sip, swish it around. After you swallow it, lean back, touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and breathe in. Have to swallow it first. Don't breathe in with the wine still in your mouth. I have to tell people this all the time because I don't want to get sued. So breathe in. It's going to suck the air to the sides of your tongue, right, concentrating that airflow right where your salivary glands are, right where your jaw meets. That focuses on acid. So it tells us how highly acidic or lowly acidic, that's not a word, but follow with me, that the wine is. So the more you feel that pucker effect and the more your mouth is watering, like you just bit into a lemon, higher the acid. Let's see about this wine. Oh my word. I just love Chenin Blanc. Oh, okay. So here is why I love Chenin Blanc. While the wine seems weighty and rich and viscous and like putting on a suede coat, to me, Chenin Blanc, it's like it got this like texture to it. Anyways, it feels like this warm coat, but the acid is there. It's not boring. It's not flabby. It's not flat. There is vibrancy there. There is like this racy quality to it. Kind of like grips your tongue and your cheeks and everything. It's like, I'm here, listen to me. Love Chenin Blanc. So as dense, as rich, and like soft and homey as it feels, it has this punch to it, which I really, really enjoy. Its expression and texture and layer of this wine. So what are y'all getting in terms of the taste, texture of this wine? So talking about acid, does it taste sweet? It smelled sweet, but we can get sweetness on the tip of your tongue if you just stick your tongue into the wine, like so. Constant wine just on the tip of your tongue where your sweetness receptors are on your palate, or the highest concentration of them. We notice that there might be just like the slightest amount of sweetness to the wine, but it's dry wine. It's not bone dry. It's not like licking chalk, but it is not off dry. It doesn't have perceptible overall sweetness to the wine. So all this to bounce back off of Anna's comment, it smells sweet and sour at the same time. So yes, that acid is there, and that sweetness and that floral tropical note and that slight tinge of softness to the fruit is also there. So Christine says, completely changes flavor profiles for the first sip to now. Yes, the best wines are like the best conversations. They start out as one thing and then they end up as another, and you don't even know how much time has passed in between point A and point B. That is a good wine. That is a wine that pulls you in, and before you know it, an hour is gone, the bottle is gone, and you're looking for something else to do. So that is so key. I love that you said that. So first is tart and now sweeter and fruit forward. Yes, as the wine warms up, the acid is mitigated. So white wines or red wines, all wines, as they warm up in temperature, the acid seems to be less involved, which is why you want something really cold when you're hot and sweaty from mowing the lawn. You want something really, really refreshing. You want that raciness. So you serve something super ice cold, whether it's iced tea, lemonade, beer, or white wine, bubbles, whatever it is. That coldness accentuates the acid. As the wine warms up, that acid is less accentuated, meaning it's developing all these richer, rounder flavor profiles. So Okay. Oh, it smells like camembert, so it's like cheesy quality. Love, love, love that. So medium to high acid, but perfectly balanced. I love this wine. Okay. My dad is hooked on Chenin. I have done my job as a Somme daughter. I am complete. Vinoculture is done, y'all. Now I have completed my job. My parents love Chenin Blanc. All right, so Jimmy says, sneaks up on you. This is smooth, but floral, melon, fruit, and tart all the same time. Yes, Chenin Blanc has that. It is not split personality. It's just got a lot going on always. It's not disjointed in terms of two separate personalities. Some wines are like that. It just always has so many different layers going on, and I really, really enjoy that. So alcohol level, that's how far down you feel it burn after you take that sip. Does this wine strike you as just like being pungent and hot going down, or is it softer on the finish? Let's see. Yeah, I definitely like feel this. What'd you say? Right up here?
Oh, I thought it felt like less alcohol than it actually reads on the bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So we thought that it looked like less alcohol content from the sheeting effect, because that usually indicates less than 12% alcohol, and also feels like less alcohol content to me than the bottle says. That is indicative of one truly is integrated. That alcohol is integrated into the wine versus like, here's the wine and then bam, we feel and sense and smell the alcohol. So that integration of alcohol is just a sign of really well-made wine. So yes, you pay extra money for French wine, but sometimes, man, it's just worth it. Love, love, love this wine. This is to me a great spring wine because it's not racy enough to like be the thing that I want on a hot summer day, but it is definitely the thing that I want with grilled chicken, with homemade biscuits. Oh man, I know I'm craving that. With like richer, like not rich food like winter food, but not vibrant, fresh, salty food like I get in the summertime. So scallops with like lemon beurre blanc on top. Perfect with Chenin Blanc. Sea bass. Some of this like steakier, meatier, richer seafood. Perfect. Chicken, bone-in pork chop. Amazing. Anything with some smoke on it. Guacamole. My dad says everything goes with guacamole. I believe. So anything with a little bit of smokiness to it really works with Chenin Blanc in this flavor profile. So and wine, not knowing whether or not they like Chenin Blanc, and found out that they did. Okay, we have one over here. Tell me, anyone else joining in the comment chat room, if you thought like, I don't know about Chenin Blanc, I've never had this grape, or I've never really known what I felt about this grape. Tell me what you think about Chenin Blanc now after having it. You can tell me if you like, this is not my grape. That's totally fine. It just means that we need to taste more Chenin Blanc so I can convert you. Regardless of your feelings, just tell me what you thought about this Chenin Blanc specifically. So Brenda says, I don't get okay, so she didn't get the wines this specific time. So how is this French Chenin Blanc different from South African Chenin Blanc? Great question. South African Chenin Blanc across the board is always going to have higher alcohol content because it is just warmer. Even in the coolest parts of Africa, warmer than the regions in France where this is grown. Also, they make wines in a little bit more expressive way. So flavors are not literally, but metaphorically and figuratively jumping out of the glass. They're very, very aromatic. There's not a whole lot of like softness, delicacy, like intricacy to the wine. I love South African Chenin Blanc, but they are always dancing to me. They're not just sashaying like this wine is. They are dancing. They're vibrantly expressing themselves. So they're just a lot more like extroverted for sure, with higher alcohol content, which is great if you need it to hit faster. But it's just a little bit of a different style. Terroir is different. So you have a lot of like clay and limestone in here. In South Africa, you have the specific combination of red clay and limestone, and this higher iron content in the soil, which just makes wine very, very different in specifically South Africa. The only thing that comes close to me is the terroir of Chile, the specific soil type of Chile. So that just makes the wine seem a little bit smokier also. So just one of those weird things. Love the flavor. Awesome, Bill. Great to hear that. Brandon wasn't familiar with it, but we found one of his new favorites. All right. Brandon and my dad have a new favorite, which is Chenin Blanc. Fabulous. Pleasantly surprised. This is delicious. That's my favorite thing to hear. Pleasantly surprised. That's my goal always, is to pleasantly surprise people. All right. So we're already on the next wine. Okay, great. All right. Sorry. I talk a lot about the wines. I get so excited about Chenin Blanc. All right, we will tune into the next one. So either bottoms up or get a new glass. And I can't decide what to do. Bottle's almost gone, so there we go. It's Saturday night. My mom is looking at me like, what? All right, so next wine. Let's go ahead and pour that Clos Maya from Languedoc. Should be a radically different experience of the wine. And if y'all watched my Facebook Live video, I was super surprised by this wine. I've had this wine multiple vintages, and I have never had this wine taste like this before. So I thought I knew what I was getting into when I got this, but I didn't. And I love that about wine, that it just, when wine isn't formulaic, then it is more expressive. And let me break that down. Formulaic wines mean they have a very strict formula of how they make wine. They pick this many tons of grapes. They sort out at least this percentage of bad grapes. They press the wine like this. They introduce this chemical or not. They introduce this or not. They crush the grapes, or they press them immediately, or they cold soak them, or whatever it is. They have their steps that every single vintage, they do the exact same way, regardless of what the vintage is. It was a cooler vintage or a warmer or whatever, because their goal is not to create a wine that is expressive of terroir and vintage and specificity of site and flavor, but their goal is to create a consistent product. Well, that's great if I'm like into making cars, but if I'm into making wine, I want to know that I'm tasting a 2016 instead of a 2015 or a 2017. I want to taste the difference. I want all of that broken down. I want to taste the site difference. So if that winemaker made a wine from 3 different single vineyard sites, I want to taste the specificity in each different wine. And if you just make wine in this formulaic way, you always get the same product, which is great for consistency, great for those people who want to buy a case of a wine a week and drink the same thing every day, all day. And that's fine for some people. Like I just drank Bombay Sapphire. Like, that's it. That's the gin I drink. That's the gin I buy every time. I don't experiment. I don't try new ones. I don't care. That's what I drink when it comes to gin. When it comes to wine, though, I don't want that. I don't want a formula. I want to taste the terroir. I want to taste the difference in vintage. And to me, the 16 is just radically, radically different. So get your nose in here. Let's check out the site. Let's talk about this. While you're getting your nose in there, while I'm waiting for I want to talk to you real quick about the Languedoc. So if there was one region in France that I could invest in terms of wine, the Languedoc would be it. I'm not telling you where to invest in this wine. I'm please note this. I am not recommending anyone invest this. Don't sue me again. But globally, if I were to invest in wine, it would be in Canada, because thanks global warming, Canada is going to be producing their Cabernet soon. Also South Africa, because they're actually on the forefront of confronting global warming and dealing with water challenges and environmental sustainability in this radical way. So Canada and South Africa would be the places that I would invest. But in terms of just Languedoc would be where I would invest money in. And that's because most people think of Languedoc as their $10 to $15 white, red, and rosé wine, sometimes some sparkling too. It's just like your everyday house wine. And they make amazing stuff in that price range. But they also have this incredible wines. Like there's a couple producers. Clos Maya is one of them. So Clos Maya right here. Another one is Mare de Gassac. Mare de Gassac. I'm going to type that in here. Mare de Gassac. That and Clos Maya. And there's a couple others that truly make some of the best French wines that I have had. And they're generally always blended. And what I love about blends, I'm going to digress and tell a story here. I was, back when I was working in restaurants, I was recommending someone, their wine selection. They had asked to see a sommelier. So I come over there and they're like, well, we don't drink blended wines. So what can you recommend us? And I was like, what do you mean you don't drink blended wines? I understand like not liking the term red blend, because red blend, when a lot of people say that here in the United States, generally connotates a slightly sweeter profile, easy drinking, chuggable red wine. But that's not to say that all wines that are red, that are blends of different grapes, are that profile. So I had this kosher conversation with them about this, and they turned down every single one of my recommendations after like 20 minutes of talking with them, and they picked on their own a wine from this region of France, which was a blend of 13 grapes. And they were like, well, we're just going to pick this wine. Thank you for your recommendations, but we know what we like. And they picked this wine. I was like, and I didn't have the heart to tell them it was a blend of 13 grapes. But this wine focuses on, this region as a whole focuses on blends. Grenache is the key grape. Grenache is the key grape for red grapes, and Grenache Blanc or Grenache Gris is the key grape for the white blends. So they're all genetic mutations of Grenache. Grenache is the parent, I guess, and genetically mutated into Grenache Gris and Grenache Blanc. But those three grapes, which are very, very closely related, are the keys of the white and red blends from this area. And it's my guilty pleasure wine, whether it's red or white. Grenache is my jam in terms of like guilty pleasure. Like I don't have to think as much about it, but sometimes I want to, and that's what this wine is. So get our nose in there. Tell us what you're getting. And let's see here. So, all right. So I love that comment on it, like the apple juice comment. So what I love about certain white wines specifically, often it's more Chardonnay, but sometimes it's other grape varieties like Grenache Gris or Grenache Blanc, is this wild farm apple quality. So it's not apples that you pick out in the grocery store that are perfectly waxed and shiny and wonderful. It's that like you walk down a field in the middle of nowhere and there's an apple tree and you pick it. Like it's not meant for commercial consumption. It has this wild vibrancy, funkiness to it. And that is what is in this wine, and I really, really enjoy it. So is there a common misnomer that blends are the leftover wine? Absolutely. That like, sorry, I'm going to call bullshit on that right there. Yes, there are certainly producers that after they make their key Cabernet Sauvignon, they use the B-class Cabernet Sauvignon and blend with some other B-class grapes to make a B-class wine. Absolutely. Does that happen? Yes. Does blended wine mean that those people are just using B-class grapes? Absolutely not. What I love about blends is how people interact together. It's like that. You get this group of friends, and one's the extrovert, one's the introvert, one's the person with the crazy ideas, and one's the person that reels everybody back into safety, and how they all interact together as a group to make a one cohesive unit that is super expressive and fun and dynamic. That's what each great different personality brings something else to the table. Sometimes you mitigate the other. Sometimes you accentuate the other. Sometimes you polarize the other. Like it just all depends. So yes, citrus blossoms. Yes, yes, yes. Orange blossom, lemon blossom. It almost smells like I want to wash my laundry in this. Is that weird? I want my laundry to smell like this wine. I wear fresh clothes. I get pulled over for a speeding ticket. Ma'am, you smell like wine. No. It's just my laundry detergent. Yes.
You've used that before.
I haven't used that before, but I'll think about it in the future for sure. Sorry. To go back to your question, Robert Scanlon, 5 years old on the latch Chenin Blanc. How much longer will it last? It's not a top easy. The Chenin Blanc has vibrancy and acid. Sorry, I forgot to hint on that, but that vibrancy and acid will keep this wine going on and on and on. That's what I love about Chenin Blanc. You don't have to pay a ton for it to age a really long time. So, okay, sorry, I know y'all are already like finished tasting this wine because I'm just talking about police officers and farm apples, but let's taste this wine and tell me what y'all are getting. Is this higher acid or lower acid than the last? Is it higher alcohol or lower alcohol than the last? Does it seem sweeter or lower than the last? So first sip for this wine is interesting because it's not. It's that first like just head nod sip is just white wine. It's kind of nondescript and seems boring in comparison to the nose. Let's swish and swirl and see if we get a little bit more out of it. A class isn't over until I break a glass, spit some wine, or spill some wine all over me. Oh, man. This is what I love about wine. It's so surprising. That first sip was like, kind of like, why did I pick this wine? And then that second sip, so much going on. Talk about acid. It's hard to talk right now because my mouth is watering so much. There's so much acid in this wine. It's so racy. It is just like, I just took a sip of lemon water, not lemonade, because there's no sweetness in it. Lemon water with some chalk grounded up and some cement. I licked some cement afterwards, like all that minerality of like, my mouth is dry at the front, but watering all throughout the mid palate and the back. Crazy minerality on this wine, but also crazy acid, very racy. This wine could age for another 10 years. Mark my words. Please don't buy any more because I think there's only like one more case of this left and I want to buy it all so I can see what it tastes like over 10 years. Just kidding. You can buy it, but maybe only one bottle at a time because I want to buy a case. Oh, man. All right. So I get a little bit of that similar graham cracker crust. Do y'all get this like graham cracker crust kind of thing? So to like spice a little bit of like this nutmeg thing, this like bitter spice, not sweet spice, but this bitter. Yeah, it reminds me of like grating nutmeg over eggnog, and sometimes that dust that gets in the air and gets in your nose and mouth when you grate that. Does anyone else grate that over homemade eggnog? Samam is the best for sure. Apricot, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. So Tiffany says, boring. I loved it. Just broke a glass myself. Oh no. All right. Well, let me know if you need more wine glasses. I sell wine glasses too. A lot of diesel petroleum on the taste. Not a bad thing, but it's there. So there is this, and you know, there is a little bit of this diesel quality. So here in the Languedoc region of France, you do have some more intense granite in the soil types. And granite specifically will introduce some more of that petroleum, diesel fuel, plasticky smell into your wines, especially white wines when grown in granite or slate sometimes. So both of those definitely for sure. Again, not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing in the wine. It's not like they accidentally spilled petroleum or diesel fuel into the wine. It is literally just a characteristic of wine when grown in specific soil types. So Steve Hill, Papa, my daddy, thinks that it does taste like it smells. I don't think it was high acid, maybe because of the guacamole grape. So whenever you have anything in your mouth, whether you're tasting food or you just drank coffee or smoked a cigarette or just took a shot of tequila or whatever it was, whatever you have in your mouth does affect your flavor profile and your appreciation of the next wine. So anything fatty or richer will allow something for the acidity of the wine to kind of hold on to. So the wine doesn't seem as acidic, eat it with something that's richer, whether that's olive oil or guacamole or ribeye stick that's marbleized with fat. So honey and slate. Yes, I like the honey call. So the previous wine smelled like honeysuckle, like the floral note of honeysuckle. This wine smells like honey, but it has zero perception of that sweetness of honey. So love that call, and I love the distinction between the smell and the palate, how wines smell like honey, but taste like honey without the sugar, if that's possible. That milkweed, wax flower, tart apple. Yes, 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 yes. Love it. Anna says she agrees with Papa Hill. So we got Sam Mom and Papa Hill. I like it. Not as complex as the Chenin Blanc. Would you agree with that, Papa?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. Okay. Yeah, complex and Blanc. Okay, cool. All right. So pairing. Let's talk about pairing. So Chenin Blanc, we talked about bone-in pork chop. We talked about something smoky, something a little bit richer, something a little bit homier, chicken pot pie kind of thing. This, oh man, it's hard to think about pairing it with anything because I just want to finish the bottle by itself. Man, so I really want to try this with some pecorino cheese. I want something salty with it. I want something also higher acid. Your wine should be higher levels of acidity than your food. So this wine, because it has higher acidity levels, can go with something pretty highly acidic. So ceviche, but I wouldn't want like shrimp ceviche. I want like scallop ceviche. I want something a little bit more dense. And I want that lime. I want that lime to like bring out all those yellow apples. Guacamole. Okay. Yeah. All right. We're sold here. Guacamole is gonna be is gonna be it. You know, I'd want some like that that baked brie that you do in the croissant thing that you serve on Granny Smith apples. I want something with some acid on it, but I want something with some weight too for that acid to cut through. So I'd also like this, like artichokes are difficult to pair because the greenness, if y'all all got my email, the green vegetables, those enzymes in the green vegetables literally change the flavor profile of wine drastically. But if you have like artichokes, you have those marinated artichokes, spread them almost like butter over a baguette and sprinkle some blue cheese on it, and then put them on broil in the oven and let that blue cheese kind of melt, and mix it with some mayonnaise too, because, you know, we're in Virginia or Texas or wherever you are. But like that richness, that creaminess, that funkiness, that acidity, that brine, all of that with this wine. You do that just until like the bread is crispy on top and everything's warm all the way through. It's one of the best appetizers for a party I've ever served, and still to this day, I can't get enough of it. So mozzarella with blackberry and almond. Interesting. I've never thought about mozzarella with fruit component. Like I think about goat cheese with fruit all the time, but all right, now I'm going to have to try that, Dorothy. Thank you. I'm going to the grocery store unnecessarily because of you. Thank you. No, it's necessarily because, you know, it's work related, and my work is essential these days. So, all right. So If you had that red wine in the fridge, like I just remembered, you want to bring that out of the fridge because you don't want it chilled. Yes, all right, great. So we are going to go into the next red wine. Did anyone get turned on to Languedoc as a region that they want to explore more as a result of this wine? Please comment if so. If you hated this wine, also comment if so. I'm always curious. I didn't make the wine. When Patricia Green Cellars 2019 Pinot Noirs come into the market, and I do a virtual class on this, I will actually be able to say for the first time in my life, I did make this wine, so I might be offended if you don't like it, but I won't be offended for real. It'll just be fun to say, I did make this wine, because I'm so used to saying, I did make this wine, so I'm not offended if you don't like it. This is the only wine I've ever helped to make. So anyways, tell me what you thought about the two white wines, if you were surprised by either of them, if you were disappointed, or if you were just extra excited to have tried new wines. So meanwhile, don't rinse out your glasses with water, especially if you're using crystal glasses. Crystal is porous, so it acts like a sponge. So whatever you put in it gets temporarily absorbed into the glass. So right now I have wine absorbed into the glass. So in order to cleanse my glass so that it doesn't smell or taste like the previous wine, rather than rinse it with water, because water is a different pH balance than wine, and so it will mute the nose of the next wine, I'm going to pour just a tiny bit of wine into the glass. I'm going to twist it around like so, a bunch so it like coats the whole glass, and dump it out. So rinse your glass out with wine. I know it seems a little wasteful, but that's why you only use a tiny, tiny little bit. And you're welcome to drink it just to try what that wine tastes like with a tiny little bit of wine that's left in your glass. Now, if you're using just like regular glass, like my water glass is made out of, it's not porous, it's perfectly smooth, so you're not going to be affected either way. But porous crystal glass is like legit life-changing when it comes to tasting wine. All right, let's see what y'all said here. So love this wine, but not quite as much as the Chenin Blanc. Okay, all right, I'll give that to you. Like both of these wines are legit to love. Hope says your recommendation. Okay, so Hope here. Y'all got a Chateauneuf-Du-Pape Blanc from Total Wine that I had recommended because Grenache Blanc based, not Blanc based. And that was probably a little bit rounder than the wine that we had. We had a pretty highly acidic wine, and it was rounder because it was a warmer climate and not on this up on this plateau like the wine from Languedoc that we had. Also, I literally thought before having had this new vintage that that's what our wine was going to taste similar to. So super glad you enjoyed that Chateauneuf-Du-Pape Blanc. Very difficult to find and so worth it if you ever get a chance to try a Chateauneuf-Du-Pape Blanc because they just don't make tons of them. So glad you enjoyed that. Probably wasn't similar to what we had. But I'm a little bit jealous of you also because I love the Clos Presidente and everything they do. So awesome. So Lori says both were good. I preferred the first one. Okay, great. Chenin Blanc, new favorite. Oh my gosh, so many people like Chenin Blanc. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm not even mad that everyone liked the Chenin Blanc first because Chenin Blanc is kind of difficult to turn people on to because people think it's sweet wine because a lot of the times when grown in certain areas, it does tend to be sweet. And so glad that y'all all get to try this. So hopefully you all have a couple ounces of the Gamay in your glass, whether it is the Gamay we're tasting or something else. But we are tasting Pascal, Granger, Julianas, Beaujolais. So let us get back to the map. All right, so Burgundy is right here. So this like coral salmon color right here to the east part of France. The part right below Burgundy is this darker fuchsia kind of magenta color, and that is Beaujolais. Now, I know I can't hear you, but I need everyone to say this with me. Beaujolais. Beaujolais. Not Beaujolais. Okay? Bougie people might drink Beaujolais, but it is pronounced Beaujolais. So that is the French pronunciation, and we need to get it in our head because y'all be sounding ignorant when you say Beaujolais. So I need everyone to learn to say Beaujolais. And know that when you drink Beaujolais, it is not the stuff that your grandmother serves on Thanksgiving where it's like sweet and slightly spritzy and served chilled and kind of gives you a headache after 2 glasses. That is Beaujolais Nouveau. And that is literally the first pressings of the grapes that they ferment in a very quick fashion called carbonic maceration. And they press it immediately and put it into bottle and serve it right away within literally 2 weeks. And it's literally not supposed to last more than 3 months on your wine shelf. And it's just meant to get drunk and celebrate the harvest with. And that just happens to be around our Thanksgiving time. So if you think that Beaujolais is that, please know that they get drunk on that to celebrate the harvest of the really good stuff. So totally separate things. Just need everyone to know this and to know to pronounce it Beaujolais. So bougie people drink Beaujolais, but it is pronounced Beaujolais. Also non-bougie people drink Beaujolais. Everyone should drink Beaujolais, whether it's white or red. But back to Beaujolais. So Beaujolais. The southern part of Burgundy, France, was literally considered its own region, not part of Burgundy, until about the mid-1970s when Georges Duboeuf, one of the most prominent producers of Beaujolais Nouveau, that's how I'm going to pronounce Beaujolais Nouveau, that grandmother style, and he had petitioned the government to basically make this a part of Burgundy to up its level, up its classification, up its status, up its significance in the world. So it was annexed as part of Burgundy in 1972. But it took years and years and years and years for that to happen because it was always considered more like peasant wine. And peasant French wine is the best. I gotta say, screw Burgundy and Champagne and Burgundy and Bordeaux. Like, yes, anyone can make amazing wine and sell it for $1,500 a bottle. Like, if you don't make wine that's amazing and you charge that much, something's wrong. But if you can make amazing wine from the peasant regions of Loire Valley and southern Rhone and Languedoc and Beaujolais, then then more power to you. So Pascal Granger has been a producer that I have carried on both of my wine lists at both the restaurants that I worked at before starting viniculture for years. And this again is something that shows variability in terms of vintage to vintage. So previously vintages of this were not as dense, were not as extracted as this. They were much more like bright and vibrant. This was a warmer year for sure. Thanks, climate change. We're just getting to the point where more and more Beaujolais will be more extracted like this. It's harder to make the brighter lifted styles. So get your noses in here. Let's check out the color of this too. If you notice, even though it's harder to see through, like the concentration is pretty dense, there is still this like magenta, pinkish, fuchsia-ish color to it. So it's like ruby with this instead of that purple undertones. It has like these pink undertones to it. And that's really classic of Gamay. Gamay is a hybrid grape of Pinot Noir. So, all genetically related up through the centuries and centuries, but genetically related to Pinot Noir. But it's like Pinot Noir's flirty little sister. So Get your noses in there. Tell me what you're smelling. Dill. Interesting. So it's got these herbaceous notes. Awesome. Wet leaves, mushroom, black cherry. Yes. Love it, love it, love it. Coconut and cream. Awesome. Oh, wait, sorry. Was coconut and cream the last white wine that we tried, or this one? Sorry, it's like right on the border of which one we were talking about. So, Christine, please do clarify if you get coconut and cream on this one or the previous one. It does kind of smell like an almond joy. Got these almond notes, coconut notes, which is interesting. Usually coconut and dill are indicative of American oak use. If wines were aged in American oak, you usually get more coconut and dill. I'm getting that on this wine, but it's definitely not aged in American oak. I promise you. I will bet my firstborn child that I do not have on that fact. So, did not know that it was related to Pinot. Yes, Gamay is interesting that way. Straight almond joy. Yes. Okay, so you were talking about this one. Awesome. I just want to make sure you weren't talking about the last wine. So yeah, it's got like this bitter cocoa powder context to it, like you peel off the can of the cocoa powder because you're about to make something with it, and kind of get that powder in your nose, that smell. Not like sweet Hershey's chocolate, but I do get some of that bitter cocoa powder. I do love the coconut flavor. And just like all the chocolate covered cherries. Yeah, this wine is so different than the last vintage. All four of these wines, by the way, I've used before and tasted before and loved before, but all four of these wines, today was my first time trying these new vintages, so I'm super excited to share that experience with you all. All right, so while y'all are tasting through this, go ahead and taste through it. Y'all know the deal. Just get to know the wine in your mouth. Let it talk to you. So this area of Beaujolais has 10 different villages within Beaujolais. So if you have this triangle on top, this is the classification system of French wine. Now, here's what's tricky. Again, we talked about why I don't date Frenchmen because they're just too confusing. This is part of the reason. Every single region within France classifies their wines slightly differently. For instance, Bordeaux. Bordeaux is one of the most famous and most sought-after wine regions of all of France. And Bordeaux classifies their wine not by vineyard or geography-specific areas, geographic-specific areas, but by the chateau itself. So back in the 1850s, Napoleon comes around and he wants to promote these wines of Bordeaux throughout the world as being the best wines in the whole world. So he goes through in 1855 and classifies each different chateau based on the price that their wine was commanding in the market at the time. So he classified his wines from first growth, just meaning like top tier, like the best wine. There were 4 of those. Later, a 5th wine was added, but not until 1970s. Then second growth, 3rd growth, 4th growth, and 5th growth. So the 5th growths were considered the best cru classes of Bordeaux, but it was only in certain areas of Bordeaux show that was classified, regardless of which land they owned and where they were getting their grapes. So very different from Burgundy, France. And Burgundy classifies their wines by geographic locations of vineyards. So regardless of who owns it, this vineyard is classified Premier Cru or Grand Cru or whatever it is, based on how amazing those vines do in that vineyard site. That vineyard could be owned by 12 different people because it's broken down based on French inheritance law. But it's the vineyard itself that is the most important. So And then some areas of France, once you get classified, you're classified for all time. And then other areas of France, once you get classified, you have to renew that every 6 years. Some your wine gets classified, you have to renew it every year. Like, it all depends on the region. So don't get caught up in that unless you're studying. The only person tuned in is Chris. Chris, you're studying. You will have to know each different region, and I'll quiz you on it. But for everyone else, just know, on the bottom of the tier, vin de table. That was my closest impression of French wine, which just means table wine. Then you have vin de pas. P-A-Y-S is just pronounced pas. Because again, French people are so confusing. And that just means wine of the country. So it's elevated above table wine status. We'll never see table wine status of French wine in the US. It's delicious, but you got to go to France to try it. And it's literally just in jug, not labeled, not anything. Then you have Aoc wine. And that just not related to our senator at all. But it's just vin d'appellation d'origine contrôlée. So wine of the appellation of the region that's controlled. And that just means that not only is the geographic region controlled, like Chignon is controlled by the government as a geographic region, but you actually have to follow the rules of that geographic region, meaning you can only produce the wine that's allowed by then. So if it's Chignon and it's red, it has to be 100% Cabernet Franc from that region, made in this style, in this way, taste accordingly. Then once you get up to that, you get to village level. So not villages, it's called village, that's how it's pronounced. And that's where we get to this area. So in Beaujolais, you have 10 villages or crus. So Julianas is one of the villages or crus of Beaujolais. There's only 10. And those 10 villages are the producers of the top quality wines coming from throughout the region of Beaujolais. So it's not specifically from like this city, but these specific designated vineyards from around that area. Each different region has a different soil type and a different climate and all of these different things that makes Julianas taste different than the village of Bruy, taste different than the village of Fleury, taste different than the village of Saint-Amour. All 10 of them taste radically different, and you can tell the difference when you taste them all side by side. But that is the village level or village level of classification system. Next, you get to spending some money. So Premier Cru means like the vineyard itself was designated like that's top tier. But Grand Cru is the top of the top of the top tier. So Grand Cru Class A, all different based on the region that you're tasting in. But I just wanted to highlight what village level meant. Village level means that within Beaujolais, within the region, within the AOC region, there are villages or village crus that have higher quality wine than the base level AOC wine. And we are tasting one of those now. So hopefully you are already into this and really tasting through it. Tell me what you'll taste in. I literally set apart this class to break down French wine to make it less confusing. But I am now looking at faces, a couple that I have in front of me, and realizing I might have made it all more confusing, and I apologize. And if I've made it more confusing, if I have made French wine more intimidating as a result of this, I apologize. But I'm going to give you this encouragement. Once you kind of learn the system, like, oh, I really like Beaujolais, then I learn I like Cru Beaujolais or village level Beaujolais, or like I like this level, then you can learn the system within that. So once you learn the rules, it's like learning math. Once you learn the rules and the systems, everything else fits into place and everything kind of falls underneath the umbrella that you learn. So but it's not uniform and it's not consistent and it's difficult, especially when we're used to Napa Valley, California. That's the only thing we see, right? We only see one geographic name, and that geographic name doesn't tell us what grape it is, what style it is, how it's made, quality. There's out of just the geography of those grapevines, and honestly, only 5% of the grapes have to be that grape that's listed from that region. So that's all we know in terms of the New World. The Old World, all European wine, has so many more restrictions, and so it does make it more confusing. But once you learn some of the rules, actually opens it up and makes it less confusing, because you know the quality of wine and you know the style of wine that you're getting just based on the label, which we don't know here in the New World. So, all right, what are y'all getting in this wine? This dries my mouth out like crazy. Tannins are high. All right, awesome. So it says yum, fabulous. So tannins are the mouth drying sensation in the front of your mouth. So if you push the wine up into your mouth, you should get some cotton ball effects. See here.
So good.
Ooh. Yeah, man. So everyone gets this like iron content in the wine too. You're like straight up like I'm eating a rusty nail with this wine. Well, so there's a high iron content in the soil type of Beaujolais. And so often I get in Beaujolais this like serious iron content, this like rusty quality of wines in this area. So tannic wonderfulness. I love it. So yes, tannic, but someone really enjoys it. Woodsy almonds, soft and smoky. Great with charcuterie. Awesome. So Lori, what charcuterie are you serving this with? Because sometimes I'm hesitant to serve something that seems like a little bit more irony in flavor profile in terms of wine with charcuterie, because that accentuates the iron, that meatiness of the wine as well. So as a new wine nerd, how would I know this is a Beaujolais just by looking at the label? Fabulous question. So again, have I talked about why I don't date French men anymore? You don't. And here's why. Because they assume that by seeing Julianas on the label, you know that it's Beaujolais, because Julianas is one of the 10 crus of Beaujolais. So if you don't know that, like, why are you buying this wine? That's literally how the French label their wines. And slowly it's changing, but definitely not the producers I work with, which again, the producers are the farmers, or the owners are like literally they're just in flannels and jeans all day long. They're so literally on here, it definitely doesn't say Beaujolais at all. It doesn't say it on the back label either, because that's the importer back label. So this is why everyone has my phone number. Here it is, 786-282-3059. If you're ever having any doubts about a wine, whether you're in a restaurant trying to figure out what to buy, in a wine store when you're allowed to go back to them, just anything, please ask me, because I don't want anyone to ever not pick a European wine because they don't understand the label. I'd rather you text me at any time of day or night, and I will help you decode the label for sure, because it's very confusing. Julianas makes sense to me because I study this. It's my profession, it's my living, but it doesn't make sense to everybody else. And so, yes. But now you know at least one of the crus of Beaujolais. And other than that, if it's from Beaujolais, it will say Beaujolais unless it's from one of those crus. So yeah, I know it's trickly. All right, so Capicola. This wine went well with Capicola. Awesome. All right, Anna, if you're moving to France, I'm going with you. Prepare. Awesome with barbecued shrimp. Okay, I love it. This wine actually does go with barbecue. Like, could totally see the smokiness, the pepper going with this, like this black pepper, this like the richness of it, like would bring out all of the red fruits of this wine, I think. So, all right, awesome. It does have a bit of a funky smell for sure. I love this wine. This is so much more dense than a Gamay typically is. If y'all tuned into last week's blind tasting class, the Gamays were so bright and lifted and floral and elevated, very different than this. That just shows like if all wine was the same, if all Gamay was the same, we'd be so bored out of our minds. More so than we already are because we're on quarantine. So, all right. We're already... I didn't realize what time it was. We're going to taste through the last one, the Baccarat, and I apologize for going later than expected. But Baccarat, Southern Rhone, the area that Van Gogh went crazy in and cut off his ear in because it is a wild area. So on the map, you have, we were just here in Beaujolais. If you go further south than that, then you have the lighter pink area, and that's Northern Rhone. And then if you go further south than that, you have this wider area of pink, and that's Southern Rhone. So the Rhone Valley is maple. The bottom part is Southern Rhone, and the top part is Northern Rhone. The top part of Northern Rhone is totally different than the southern part. Like could not be further apart in terms of climate, soil type, the grapes they grow, the wine they make, like everything is so radically different. It doesn't deserve to be in its same region, but it has been for years, and people don't change their minds. Changing French wine law would be like telling the Titanic to make a U-turn. It just like it doesn't happen. So Southern Rhone, rather than being 100% one red grape, which is Syrah in the Northern Rhone, Southern Rhone focuses on the grape Grenache. Again, guilty pleasure wine. And it's always, not always, but 99.9% of the time blended with grapes, including Syrah, the only red grape of Northern Rhone, along with Mourvedre, Cinsault, Counois. Like there's a dozen grapes that the wine could be blended with. But it's generally what we call a GSM blend. Grenache, G, Syrah, S, M, Mourvedre. So those GSM blends are kind of spread throughout the world and blended together similarly. Southern Rhone is like, again, just like Loire Valley, just like Beaujolais, just like Languedoc, one of those regions that way over delivers for the price in comparison to the rest of France. And powerful wines, really intense, expressive wines, extroverted wines, but this perfect balance between masculinity and femininity. So you have this floral note, you have this fruit forward note, you have this like dry herbal note, what we call garrigue. So garrigue, I'm going to type that out. Garrigue is the term, the French term, for these dried herbs that are like literally bundled up together and like strung along in the houses. So rosemary, thyme, lavender, everything you think of in terms of herbs de Provence, these herbs tied together, dried out all along your house. That's what often these wines in Southern Rhone smell like, because these fields of herbs de Provence are growing right alongside the vineyards. And all these essential oils from these herbs are in the air, getting stuck to the outside of the grape skins, where this wax layer, this rigid wax layer, forms and builds and captures these essential oils. So that aromatic gets into the wine. And yeah, I totally get lavender out of this. Like, I feel like I should spritz this on my pillow to sleep better at night. I get rosemary. Like, I want to spritz it on chicken before I roast it. How do I want to spritz something on a pillow? That is the power of wine, is its ability to transport us to so many different scenarios. All right, taste through this wine, smell through this wine. Y'all know the drill. While y'all do that, please comment. Tell me what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you feel about the wine, even if you hate it. And I'm going to tell you why Van Gogh went crazy here. So this area, more sunlight hours on average per year than any other area in France. So crazy sunny days, right? You're in the Mediterranean kind of coast, just north of the coast, inland. which means you don't have the moderating effect of the ocean, but you have all the sunlight effect. So you have these mountains on either side, so you get very little rain, but you also have these villages and forests in between you and the coast. So you don't get this moderating effect of the ocean. So you do have still very cool, cold winters and very hot summers. So intense stimulation in terms of climate and in terms of sunlight. You also have what's called the Les Mistral winds. I'll just type that in, Les Mistral. Oh, all of a sudden caps lock is on. Don't want to type in caps lock, not yelling at you. The Les Mistral winds are these howling winds that get sucked down from the north. So very, very, very cold air sucked down from the north through the Rhone Valley, through this area. And it creates these howling winds with gusts up to 65, 75 miles an hour. And it's not just for one period of the year. It's kind of throughout the entire year. You have this howling, crazy, gusty wind. So they actually have higher levels of depression and suicide rates in this area of southern Rhone than in anywhere else in France. And doctors say that they link it to the overstimulation. So they're getting overstimulated by their senses in terms of how much sunlight they're getting per day, along with this howling wind. So their brain never gets a chance to rest. So even at night, they hear the howling wind. During the day, the sun is just beating down on them. And the soil type is a lot of rocks. And those rocks are white that reflect the light just like sun does on snow when you're skiing. If anyone know we're on the East Coast, of effect where it just almost gives you a headache because it's so intense. So Van Gogh was here painting all of his sunflower fields when he went a little crazy and cut off his ear and sent it to his lover. Doctors literally look back on this and link it to the overstimulation, which is a torture mechanism right now. So it's just this wild rustic area that produces these wild rustic wines that are so powerful and so sensitive at the same time, and truly delightful. So let's see what y'all say. Wonderful with the deep thick ribeye. Yes, I know where you guys live, so I might come over if you guys are cooking that. The label says, interesting. Label says 11 to 14% alcohol. What does this mean? Great question. Well, it means that the wine is between 11 and 14%. So you can label your wine generally. And the reason people don't nail it down is because each year it could change. And so you'd have to pay to redo your labels each year. But each year it's probably in between that range. So it's a cost thing, and it's also this French thing of why you care. Like, well, I don't need to tell you what alcohol percentage it is. Like, this is, it's a very French thing. Some Spanish producers do it too, or Italian producers, but it's often these like very small producers who are like, I'm not going to pay to get this wine tested so I can make a more specific alcohol content label for you. So you only find that in these like super tiny boutique producers, which I love. Like it's going to be sometime in between getting you drunk and getting you drunker. I'm not sure. Okay. Nose has some horse manure and some jam. I'm hoping that's what it means, not horse manure jam. There was no punctuation. So I assume that Steve Hill, Papa Hill, says that
it's jammy manure.
Oh, no, he didn't want punctuation. He meant jam made out of horse manure. Interesting. It does have some barnyard funk to it for sure. All right, so Samam says nose has some phosphorus, some burnt match, some sulfur on the nose. Interesting. So it smells like Welch's grape juice. It is super, super like densely purple fruited for sure. Dates, plums, awesome, great, yes. with some salami, fabulous, wonderful. Some burnt rubber, so that goes along with that phosphorus, that sulfur kind of smell for sure. So Fast and the Furious style. Okay, more Italian than French, interestingly. If we're talking about, never mind, we're talking about wine. Never mind. All right. So wine number 3, perfect alone, or pairs with something. Wine number 4, definitely pair with something bold and fatty, something richer. Awesome, Jimmy, you are very welcome, but mostly thank you for tuning in, because if I were doing this virtual class and no one were participating in the chat room, it would be a very boring evening. It depends on how much I drink, I guess. It could be interesting. Interesting. So Robert says, our least favorite of the tasting, but interesting, even though decanted 2.5 hours, opened up and changed significantly in the glass. So what I love about Southern Rhone is how rustic they are, and it's like the cowboy of France, and definitely deserves some meat with it, and definitely requires that kind of taming it down. So I never pair Southern Rhone wines in this rustic style with anything too gamey or too intense. So because I almost want to pare that down. I mean, sorry, so lamb is actually the perfect pairing, because, sorry, I said opposite. The food you pair it with should be a little bit gamier than the wine. So if you pair it with lamb, that gaminess of the lamb all of a sudden makes that wine seem super tame and elegant and soft and beautiful, versus right now is rustic and masculine and kind of rough around the edges and not polished and smooth and easy to drink for sure. But you pair that with lamb, oh my word, everything changes. That little bit of gaminess in your food actually tames the gaminess and rusticness of the wine for sure. So all right, I know I have kept y'all later than you expected, but I appreciate you staying tuned in. Next week is blind tasting. So we're going to be doing 4 wines again, and it's going to be a guided blind tasting class where we're going to learn like the pros. I'm going to train y'all just like I trained, and I've trained other people in order to guess what's in your glass just based on this alone. And I promise you it's not a magic trick. I promise you it is a skill that anyone can learn, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it that way. So thank you all so much for tuning into these virtual classes. If there's any way that I can make them better, or if there's a specific theme that you want discussed, or if there is any question, has to email me. And if you comment it now, once I turn this off, I can't see those comments anymore. So please email me. You should all have my email address, but just in case, or it's now, it's when I'm going to mistype that. But Kira@vinocultureva.com. You can also text me, Facebook me, mail me. How else? And any way you can get in touch with me. One question.
Put your reds in the fridge if you're not drinking them tonight.
Yes. So if you have opened up 4 bottles of wine and you're not gonna finish them all, if you want your red wines to last longer, put those red wines in the refrigerator. They will last longer than they will on the shelf. Temperature is the #1 key in terms of your wine turning once it's opened, more so than oxygen. So save your money. Don't buy those fancy toppers. In fact, just red wines in the fridge. You don't have to serve them cold, like pour your glass, let it come up to room temperature, but that will help you preserve your wines longer. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope to see you again very soon in real life. But until then, we're going to keep tuning in every Saturday at 7 for these virtual classes. So keep drinking delicious wine and let me know if I can help you out with your stock level. Cheers.